This is the Silver Wolf Howl. I am Angela, and today we continue our chat with Brevin Pieterse from Tyte Security. Hi Brevin, so we're continuing our chat today, and my next question is all about you. So, so tell us more about you. You did mention before a little bit about your background, but what made you get into this business? I mean, like, what made you think in school, I want to get into the security business?
I don't think there's a single person in the security industry that ever was in school and decided, I want to be in security. I mean, let me tell you now, if anybody tells you that, they are a liar. I would never believe it. You know, and I'm talking specifically this type of security. Now, you have other kinds like IT security. That is another thing altogether. But security, for me personally, is something I got into by default. I say that because I studied actually a law degree. And my objective was, I was also always fascinated with law enforcement. I mean, at the time, it wasn't the Hawks, it was Scorpions. I had researched, and in order to join that law enforcement agency or the NPA, you needed a type of law degree. And that's what got me to go and study law, is that I always had a passion for law enforcement, but I needed to obviously study because I wasn't prepared to be a SAPS or a policeman because, you know, we know what they earn. I mean, all respect to our fellow police officers, but it's not the best rewarding job, both personally and financially. So the next best thing was obviously your NPA or your Scorpion, those kind of divisions, and I needed to study to get there, and I started studying, and I was a little bit naughty in varsity. Well, I've always been a little bit on the naughty side, but innocent naughty, not. I, at the time, made my girlfriend pregnant. She was first year university, med school, and I was, third year? Almost fourth year was my final. So I just finished my third year. I was going into my final year. And I was doing quite well. But it became hard because she had a scholarship to study medicine, and we both didn't come from the most wealthiest backgrounds. So when she fell pregnant, she lost her scholarship. And it was a tough one for the family because, I mean, she was brilliant. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to take a couple of years off, a year or two off, go and work, try and earn an income and support her, help her, sort of pay her fees and get her back on track. And long story short, that's what I did. My son was born. Obviously, things didn't work out for us as a couple, but she was able to get her scholarship back after, I think, within a second year. And at that point, I was in the working world doing some security work. And I think once you get the taste of money, it's hard to go back and study. So I thought, well, you know what? I still have a child to support anyway. Let me work, and then I'll get back there. I think from then till now, or 10 years, up to 10 years after that, I registered about 3 or 4 times at UNISA to go and complete that law degree. Because I was determined and I wanted to complete it. As I'm sitting here now, that's one of the bigger disappointments in my life. And it's something for personal achievement more than anything that I would still like to complete. But unfortunately, you know, we get older and the laws change. And as the laws change, the further away you get from completing, because it's more and more subjects that you need to obviously study, and it's more years and so forth. So at that point, I just started in the security industry, and then I started working in the security industry, and I started as a sales rep actually within security. You know, my business partner always has a saying, and I love it, I use it all the time: make life your university. So once I realized that I couldn't finish university, I decided to make life my university. So I stole with my eyes and my ears, and I literally went into the security industry, basically learning, watching other people, looking at best practices, you know, and I've got, I regard myself as a fairly intelligent person, so I could sort of figure things out for myself, and that's where I started growing. And just to go back a bit, my ex, the mother of my child, she's today a qualified, neurosurgeon. She's doing exceptionally well. So, you know, it wasn't all doom and gloom. It all actually worked out at the end. So I said in the beginning I worked for mainly 2 security companies. And I say mainly because I dabbled here and there with 1 or 2 other companies, but officially employed, the first company I worked for was for about 6 years, 5.5, 6. And I tell you, I've got so much respect for that owner of that company because I started as a sales rep. He saw my potential. I became sales manager, and then when you're in sales in security, you sort of get more invested with your clients. And if your clients are not getting a service, you jump in and try and rectify and get operations, and that's what I did. I'm a hands-on person, so I got involved operationally. And my CEO at the time saw my potential, and he was like, Brevin, I want you to oversee operations as well, because you see things differently. I always tell people I look at things in the eyes of my client more than the other way around. And this is why I can give my client, I say, a more superior service because I know what he wants, And at that point, he had a branch up in KZN, and the branch wasn't doing too well. And he said to me, Brevin, here's some money. Go there, develop that branch. Just go crazy and do what you do best. And I promise you, within the space of 3 years, that branch went from 0 to hero. And I then started getting headhunted by all the big security companies around South Africa. And then I eventually accepted an offer by the biggest security company in South Africa. But that required me to relocate to Johannesburg, back to Johannesburg. Went back to Johannesburg. I climbed that corporate ladder like super quick. And then they asked me, we've got issues in Cape Town. Don't you want to go to Cape Town? You're young, energetic. Go and run operations and oversee the office in Cape Town. And I accepted. It was lucrative, and relocated with my family. I remember December 2009. Moved to Cape Town and operated up until end of 2014, where I, at that point, had done my job for that company, I believe. And I still have a very close relationship with the company. We actually do a lot of work and business together. I went on my own end of 2014, and since that, I never looked back. So all in all, I'd say 21, 22 years in the industry. Yeah.
Yeah, time flies, hey. I like that saying that you mentioned from your friend, make life your university. And it's almost like that's what my life was, because I had similar challenges getting, financially, obviously getting into university, leaving high school and stuff like that. So everything that I got into, I was interested in, and then I made sure I learned it well, and then, it opened up a new adventure again. So I really like that saying, and it was nice to hear you mention it and bring it up. I want to chat now about the security industry in South Africa compared to other countries. What's the differences? What are the challenges that we face here? Are they unique to South Africa? The challenges or things that we maybe don't have, that they have, good, bad? What is that whole world like?
Look, I can tell you one thing. Within the security industry internationally, and it's been said to me more than once, and I've traveled quite a bit, they always say if you're coming from South Africa and you're in the security industry and you've been there for years, then you must be a cut above the rest. I'm talking within the international security fraternity. And the reason, the reasons for that is because South Africa, as you know, we're amongst the top 10 in the world in terms of crime, especially violent crimes. Now, if you can successfully run a company or work for a company successfully within South Africa in terms of the kind of crime and corruption and that type of daily occurrences that we face, I promise you, for most countries in the world, and I say most because we are amongst the top 10, we're certainly not number one, there are worst off countries, but for most countries in the world, security is a walk in the park. It literally is a walk in the park because crime is not as violent as it is here in South Africa. It's not so hardcore as it is here in South Africa. I think in a lot of the countries, especially the countries I've traveled, your law enforcement agencies are really hardcore. I mean, even your sort of underworld don't dominate over law enforcement agencies in other countries as much as sometimes it does here in South Africa, simply because well, of many different reasons. Probably resources is one of them, and the laws around, or rather the penalties around breaking the laws are much harsher. So South Africa is definitely special. I mean, we as law enforcement officers, or a kind of law enforcement agency, because security is or supposed to be a part of law enforcement in a lot of ways. We and I feel sorry for my guys out there in the field. I mean, as I'm sitting here now, I've lost some good guys over the years because of violent crimes. Armed robberies gone wrong, heists, hijackings, and so forth, protecting clients' life, or their own lives for that matter. So, if I were to make a comparison, I'd definitely say that we they say in life, you don't miss something that you don't have or don't know. And fortunately enough, for us that are South African born and we've grown up in this environment, when I go overseas and people tell me about my country, I'm like, but what are you talking about? What do you mean? Because what may seem as norm to us, to them it's like, whoa, what is going on? How can you live in that environment? I'm like, I don't see it. I don't understand what you're saying. So taking that into regard, it's horses for courses, or courses for horses, or whatever it is. It's a case of growing up here, knowing what we need, and as a security company, doing what we need to do within the ambit of the law to sort of avert the dangers, the crimes, effect arrests, and give our clients services. Overseas and the few countries that I've traveled, security is very, I won't say laid back. It's actually not laid back. But you can see from a professional point of view, your typical security guard is way more relaxed. You can see he's accepted that industry as his career path. So he's serious about what he's doing, and he does it because, I suppose, and I don't know, I'm guessing the compensation obviously works out differently. Whereas here in South Africa, and you don't blame our guys, the risk is high. The conditions are bad sometimes. I mean, if I look at some of the guys that work night shift in the areas that they work, the conditions that they work under, I don't sometimes blame them when they desert post or sleep on duty or whatever the case may be. As much as we don't want that to happen, the reality is it does. We're dealing with human beings. So I think here in South Africa, it's just way more hardcore. That's by far one of our biggest challenges. It's a hardcore industry. As regulated as it is, the sad reality is that the regulations are there, but I don't think the enforcement is on par with the regulation from our governing bodies, because there's just way too many, and I'm going to say this in inverted commas, fly-by-night companies. And it makes it difficult for us that are actually trying to operate within the law, within legislation, comply accordingly. And like you probably know, compliance doesn't come cheap. It costs us a lot of money. It costs our security officers a lot of money, because we've got to deduct sometimes portions from them, to pay for their whatever it is in terms of compliance. So your companies that are not keeping within those compliance are obviously charging less and paying less. And how do you compete with that? On the one hand, you've got a security guard on the ground that's working, being underpaid. And I mean, the industry alone, I mean, the regulated salary is low as it is. I mean, you can only imagine now if you as a fly-by-night company is charging the client less than regulated rates, and you're paying those poor guys on the ground, or underpaying them. I mean, it's a knock-on effect in terms of what we have to deal with in terms of the more complying security companies. It just makes it that much harder for us to sort of grow in the industry, to stay competitive in the industry, and to give service, because of those type of issues that we are having. Yeah.
It's probably true for most businesses that kind of thing does happen. But, just me being able to speak from my perspective, being in the same industry as you are, it is very frustrating. So I completely understand where you're coming from, because we have the same kind of challenges with other service providers providing such cheap rates to clients that you can't compete with. But that's because they're not complying and they're not paying all those fees and paying their people well. So yeah, completely relate to you on that point. Let's chat more about those challenges that you face as a business, and also personally. What are the challenges that you face?
Oh, there's a few. Look, security is not an easy industry. I always tell people, security, don't look at fancy cars and think, yes, this is a way to get rich quick. Let me open a security company. Because if you see that, then 10 to 1, the guy's not doing something he's supposed to be doing in terms of compliance. Because it's not cheap to comply. It's expensive to comply. It's a challenge. I mean, it's something we complain of often to our governing bodies. Why must we pay this? Why must we pay that? We just had an increase. Why are we getting another increase? And to try and convert those increases and convince our clients to absorb those increases, it's almost impossible these days. And rightfully so. I mean, everybody, given our economy, is literally, living on the breadline, whether you're a business owner or not. You are trying to make ends meet. You're trying to stay compliant, but at the same time, you still need to make a profit. You need to earn a living. This is why we go into business. We don't go for the fun and games. So I'd say by far that's one of our biggest challenges, is to remain compliant all the time, but stay profitable as a business. We now going to experience another increase within our industry. I know a lot of guys, including myself, that are crying and are saying, but yes, what are we going to do? We just had an increase not so long ago, and our clients are not willing to look at, more especially, a 13% increase. I mean, you can explain a 3 or 4 or 5%, but a 13%, I mean, that's a huge difference. So by far, I personally find that quite challenging. As the CEO in the business, we've grown as a business, and I've got, like I've mentioned earlier, infrastructures where I've got branch managers and general managers and administrative people. I've got ops managers, I've got control rooms, I've got HR, IR. Now, as the CEO, it's virtually impossible for you to sort of be on top of every single division and to ensure that they comply and that they follow through with our compliance in terms of our governing body. Because again, we're dealing with human beings. Our security guards on the ground are no different to my admin person sitting in the office, because they become complacent. They become emotional. I don't know what their personal circumstances are at home. They stay absent. They get sick. And that has a negative bearing on the business, because Murphy's Law, as he would have it, on the day you get audited or you get inspected, somebody's not there, or somebody hasn't completed their work, or hasn't uploaded what they needed to upload on Sira, or whatever the case may be, or is in the process, or with load shedding, the Wi-Fi has been down, so the backlog is, there's a backlog in work, and boom, we get inspected, and then you're non-compliant on this and non-compliant on that, and then you get penalized. It's like there's no sort of leniency. And for me, that's a problem, because I always say, look at my business as a whole. Look at the history of my business. Look at what I've been contributing towards all the bodies in which we need to comply to. And then judge me. But don't judge me on today's inspection, because it could be due to load shedding, it could be to a sick staff member or a negligent staff member. So I find from a management point of view, it does become a challenge. We try, look, we do our level best to stay 100% compliant, but it's not always possible. We do shirk here and there, and we very quickly find the problem, and we fix the problem. But that is a challenge. HR, IR. I mean, I've got a lot of staff. And we deal with human beings, again, people. You're very often left in a very difficult situation, because you sit there and you think, man, this guy's been working for me for the past 5-6 years. He's done, for the most good work, but the offence he's committed now is dismissible as per his contract. He's been warned by his management. What do? Do I let him go? He's got a family to feed. So you got to look, and I don't know if it happens with other people, but with me, I look at a staff member and I times that person by 4, because ideally his salary is potentially supporting 3 other people. You understand, if not more. And apart from just the support and the back end, you know, the time we've spent in training, the effort, you know, all of that, you know, becomes questionable. And it's like, do I let this person go and now I have to start from scratch with somebody else? So that's definitely a challenge, because whilst there are very good people out there and they're diligent and do their work, there are those that, you know, are in the industry just to earn a salary at the end of the month, and we need to make difficult decisions at times and discipline them and let them go, and other times have to deal with criminal acts that they've committed outside of the business, but because they work for the company comes under question, you know. So that is a large part of where my challenges lay. We try and keep our staff honest. And keeping them honest means incentivizing them. Incentivizing has a cost attached to it, you know. To try and balance the two and keep the business profitable also becomes a challenge, you know, because earlier I just spoke about compliance costs. And now apart from compliance, we're dealing with the human component, incentivizing people, keeping them motivated. That comes with a cost. And then we still, as a business, need to make profit. We want to make profit. We want to, you know, keep operating. I mean, I'm in this business for the long game. You know, I'm not in it for today for a quick buck. So, you know, those are the kind of challenges we deal with on a daily. It's part of the industry, but it's still a challenge nevertheless. You know.
Yeah, very relatable. All those challenges that you mentioned. Are you ever in physical danger as CEO of Tyte?
Yes, definitely. Look, we're in security. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm a very hands-on owner, CEO, more especially on the tactical side of the business, because tactical is very risky and it also has huge implications if the guys cross the line in terms of law. So I try and be present for the most, and I've got certain senior management that need to be present if I can't. So from a risk point of view, that definitely puts me in harm's way. We deal with people. Sometimes logic never ever prevails. Disgruntled staff that, although as a company you know you've done everything you could, you followed the law, to try and explain it to an individual that's disgruntled, that's negative, you know, sometimes ends up in confrontation. It's happened in my previous company. Fortunately, it hasn't happened here, where people have even been shot in their offices by staff because of temperament and just being disgruntled and unhappy. Yeah, so that's always a looming risk, and we put processes in place to try and mitigate that at our offices. But I mean, it's still there nevertheless. So yeah, you know, it's a security industry. There'll always be a risk. Our competition. I mean, I mentioned earlier, there's all types of security companies and security bosses. Others that are more corporate thinking, and those that are not more corporate thinking. And I'm not going to spell it out, but you know, you unfortunately from time to time come across that, and you know, there's comments thrown around, threats thrown around, and again, it's just about taking precaution and sort of, as they say in the security industry, watching your six.
Yeah, and I thought you were going to talk about the risk of paper cuts. Aren't CEOs supposed to sit in the office and push paper around? No, I like the fact that you're actually more hands-on. I often feel that that's the best way to know your business and to know your people and to know the team that you work in, because you're a team, you know, all the time making this business grow. So that's really cool. So in order to combat that kind of risk to yourself, or at least put something in place to protect yourself, what kind of training do you do, both personally and also your staff? Or do you do any such training, or what kind of training do you guys do?
Well, look, there is the general training in order to work within the security industry. Okay, and that is your different grades of security. That's regulated by our governing body called CIRA, PSIRA. It's an acronym, but it's a long word. But it's our governing body. It's commonly known as CIRA. So in order for you to work in the security industry, you need to be registered with CIRA. In order to be registered with CIRA, there's many training facilities out there, colleges out there. You start with your normal grade E, D, C, B, and A. Your E, D, C, they sort of done away with the E and D, but it's still there. Your EDC is basically your entry-level security guard. You know, the guy at the gate signing you in, doing access control, egress control, basic searches and that kind of thing. And then you have your B, which is sort of supervisory capacity, management, junior management, and A, which is senior management. Now, attached to that, these colleges also offer other courses like armed response. They offer courses for you to do. It's different specialized courses within the industry. Although not compulsory, because the compulsory courses is your EDC, B and A. Any of those or all of them, depending on what you're doing within the company. If you work with a firearm, you got to do your relevant firearm training for personal and for business. And that you do also at an external training facility, but you got to get registered via the SAPS. So before I issue a firearm to anybody, I need to know he has, well, A, he's a South African citizen, B, he's got a CIRA certificate in accordance with whatever I need him, wherever I need him to work. And then number 3, he needs to have his firearm competency. So if it's handgun, it's got to be specific handgun. Shotgun, specific shotgun. Rifle, specific shot. It actually specifies. So now if we go to armed response, and he's specifically working within armed response, then we're looking for an additional accreditation by CIRA, and that's armed response accreditation. If he's working cash in transit, then there's a CAT accreditation attached to all his grading. Tactical, there's no real accreditation within our governing body that specifically says tactical. A lot of the guys do the armed response and all the firearm competencies, but with tactical it's slightly different because it's more a skill than it is a qualification. So you can do, there are qualifications. You can do VIP protection courses. There's a few companies that offer it, and they're accredited to various different bodies, but in terms of legislation, you know, I'm not compelled to have them have a certificate from ABC Tactical Training Services or whatever the case may be. You understand? Just as long as they tick all the boxes in terms of compliance, we then identify individuals based on experience. How long have you worked with a firearm? In what capacity have you worked with a firearm? I preferably look for guys that have been ex-SAPS members, because of the level of training they've experienced, or ex-SANDF, that's your military experience. And we then obviously place them where we see they suitably fit, you understand, and that obviously comes with a level of remuneration. You just got to make sure that everybody complies with our basic compliance and legislation requirements. And as a company, we're responsible for that. And obviously, we've got to pay them accordingly because regulation actually tells us what we need to pay and how much per hour and how overtime works and how many shifts to roster them, and so it goes. Yeah.
Okay. So what do you find most satisfying about your work?
When clients pay my damn invoices. Yeah. No. Look, you know, the during COVID, 2021, you know, we went through a very difficult patch, and one of the most, the biggest challenges for me, or challenge at the time for me was, you know, the industry's in a downward spiral. Clients are downscaling because nobody's working at their offices. What do I do? Because my biggest concern, apart from just losing revenue, was losing good staff. So we had to quickly think out of the box and look at what is trending within the industry and take advantage of that. And this is, like I said earlier, where the tactical security and armed response and alarms and everything else was born, or not born, but we started aggressively pushing that. And then we started the COVID cleaning. And that's why you see it there as cleaning. It's really COVID cleaning. But the main reason for these different avenues was so that I could keep my staff. You understand? And I always tell my staff, I'm a very, what's the word? I'm very dramatic, in my explanations. I tell them, we're about to experience turbulence. I want everybody to grab on something solid and just hold on tight, with a few teeth in between, just to make it more. Because you don't know what's coming, you know that you're going through a storm, there's all sorts of problems, you're surrounded by challenges. It's A, you're going to crash and you're going to have to let go of good staff, or B, you're going to survive it. So what prides me is that fortunately through COVID, because of all these other avenues created, we didn't have to let go of anybody, And I said earlier, when I look at one person, I times it by actually 3 or 4, because, it's the extended family that we got to also think of. So having as many staff as I have and maintaining all the staff through the trying year, for me, there's nothing more gratifying, nothing more. It's just the best feeling ever. And I promise you, you see it in the faces of your staff. They're not stupid. They can see. They know these challenges. They know there's problems. But everybody could understand, and everybody just held on, and we made it through. So going back to the beginning and up till now, the consistent growth within the business didn't just mean financial growth to me, but it also meant that I get to employ more people, so I get to help more households survive and take care of their siblings and kids and wives and husbands and whatever the case may be. So for me, that for me is the most gratifying of everything. And this is why I do what I do. It's,
That's lovely. And I'm glad that you guys made it through unscathed, or fairly unscathed, and actually grown from that challenge, those challenges of those 2 years. I know in our industry, it's normally serious. But there's always some story that you find comical or weird or out of this earth. Do you have such a story that you can share with us?
Look, it's a difficult one because, the security industry lends itself to so many privileges, if I can call it that. We're allowed to put security lights in our vehicles. You as a civilian on the road, you just see lights coming on and you think police, ghost cops, what is this? Let me move out of the way, Sometimes the vehicles are branded, other times they're not branded, depending on the client's requirements. So I shouldn't be saying this, but we take advantage of that sometimes. I was late to go to the airport the one day, peak hour traffic, and I was like, one of my staff would drive in the vehicle, unmarked vehicle with lights all around it, but concealed lights, in the like you would like ghost cops, for example. And it's a GTI, so it's like a ghost cop vehicle. So I said, you know what? I can't miss my flight. I need to be there. So right now I'm turning a blind eye. You do what you need to do. And then the lights went on and everything went on. And we got to the airport on time. And, your conscience gets the better of you because it's like, you shouldn't be doing this now. You're taking advantage of the authority you've been given. But at the same time, it was comical. It was funny because we laugh about it up until today because of the reaction you get from the public. We even had police vehicles move out of the way because people don't understand the different color lights and what they represent. It's surprising out there. It's stuff like that. We do a lot of tactical work. We do a lot of high adrenaline type work where we got to go into areas at night where there's a lot of danger and to huddle up with the guys because they know, we're depending on each other to watch each other's backs, is one thing. It's a special moment, but, just to listen to people's stories and the jokes and the things they say. The one day we worked night shift and one of the guys says, you know what, because we were basically part of a stabilization team to maintain after we deployed the protest actions and stuff and calmed everything down. One of the guys leaves to go to the shop, and he's back half an hour later, and he comes with boerewors and a small braai stand, and I'm like, what the hell is this? He says, boss, in Afrikaans, he says to me, boss, no, we're going to care now. It's the morning, we made it through the night. And so he started braaiing, and everybody was happy and laughing, and the client gets there, and I get a skrik, and I'm like, oh shit, this is not really professional. And the client digs in, he's like, is there one more for me? Because it's like voice rolls and stuff. So it's like things like that you sort of appreciate, and you enjoy the funny in it, because the guys really work hard. They put their lives in danger. They're serious about what they do for most of the time. But there are times where we just, do what we need to do and laugh it off the next day. And it's an awesome industry, I must say, with all the negatives.
It's so refreshing to hear you speak so fondly and with a smile on your face about your work. So it's really great to see that kind of joy in what you do. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat to us today and for sharing your experience and your insight into the industry. It's really been fun. So thank you for having us.
Well, thank you. It's been really, insightful. Sharing, actually, you don't realize it. You sent me a bunch of questions via email, and I was like, okay, I can answer these questions. But the interview is going to go quite quick, because it's like literally 1 or 2 sentences, 1 or 2 words. You'll see I made little scratches here and there, and I did it literally. I'm that guy that studies the night before a test. So I did it literally just before you guys came. But just sitting and talking, you sort of recollect, and things just come flooding in, and it's awesome to share, and I'm happy to share my experience in the industry, and hoping that it encourages others out there and helps others out there, and I'm always open to assist where I can. So thank you.